Hello, this is Hwan San Sinim, and welcome to our program. Recently, I had the opportunity to teach meditation and practice some meditation with a group of professionals who are all in the same line of work. And once a month, they come out to see me and to learn the some meditation practice method of my teacher, Sun Master Songdam. So we meditated together, and afterward, one of them commented that it's really amazing, when you look inside during meditation, how many different kinds of really strange and even kind of crazy thoughts and images that pop up in your mind. And I laughed because that is what happens. And I said, yeah, it's just really amazing what kind of imagery you get, what kind of thoughts you think, and you just really see how chaotic the inside of our mind is. And then I noticed that he looked kind of disturbed, and he said, yeah, but some of these thoughts, they're really random. And I could see, I didn't say anything at the time, it was a very casual atmosphere, but I felt that he had seen something in himself that had startled and disturbed him, that he had seen maybe a side of himself that he didn't know he had, and that he felt like he didn't want to have that side of him. All of us, I believe, all of us think things and feel things and desire things that are so negative, we can never, ever tell them to another human being. So this brings me to the topic of today's episode, and that is, how do we go on and how do we practice when we encounter the darkest parts of ourselves? I remember when I first became a Buddhist monk and entered into the monastery where we practice and began meditating. For the first time in my life, I was meditating and living in a community of monastics and lay practitioners. And the thing is, when you're in that kind of community, whether it's a meditation center or a monastery, and you're a raw beginner, when you're a beginner in a meditation community, there's a tendency among beginners that the first thing they notice are what everyone else is doing wrong. There is a kind of beginner who can be a little judgmental on the inside, and you look around and you see, well, that person's not doing it right, that person is being inappropriate, that person says the wrong things, that person does the wrong things. And that person's whole approach to meditation and their whole understanding and perspective on spiritual practice is incorrect. And there is this judgmental quality. We keep it on the inside, but for beginners, especially for beginning monks, there is a certain kind of inner pride that we try hard not to show others. But internally, some beginners, especially young beginners, think that, well, there's something unique, that we have a unique ability or perspective, that we have a unique insight into these teachings and this practice, and that we actually know how to do it right. And all of these, veterans who have been doing it for years, the fact that they've been doing it for years only shows that they didn't do it right. And all these other new beginners, they're also kind of, scrambling around, but I really got a bead on how to do this. So this often happens, and there's a big show of being humble because you're living in a religious setting, but inside it becomes very clear that many beginners are holding on to this secret pride. But then the years pass, and it's not as easy as you thought it would be. Getting to enlightenment, transcending your own faults and flaws, and awakening your consciousness really isn't that easy, and you begin to see, in a very sad way, all the things that are wrong with yourself now. How your own way of doing things is skewed, how you're repeating certain mistakes over and over, how your own approach is compromised by certain character flaws that you're so embarrassed about that you just try to hide from everybody else. The thing about sun meditation, it is very difficult. when you take it seriously and try to perform it, as your life path or as something that's very important to you in your life, it is very, very hard. And it's not the method that's hard. The method is actually very easy. And this is something that Sun Master Songdam says over and over in his Dharma speeches. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's just posture, breathing, and imoko. But what is hard, what he doesn't tell us that often, is that when you practice sun meditation, it's like getting up naked in front of a very unsympathetic mirror. And in that mirror, you see reflected back to yourself the ugliest and worst parts of yourself, the most embarrassing parts of yourself, the parts of yourself that you don't want to admit are there. It all comes up in meditation because the nature, especially of Korean sun meditation, is to literally look within and look at all those things that are bubbling under the surface of our minds. And so we will inevitably end up encountering and confronting the worst parts of ourselves. This is a natural part of sun meditation, and it is probably maybe the hardest part as well. So let's assume sun meditation posture. Straighten your back, tuck in your chin, relax your shoulders, look forward with a natural gaze, take the tip of your tongue, place it lightly against the roof of your mouth. Use only those muscles that you need to hold yourself in this posture. Exhale, and then as we inhale, let's engage Dantian breathing. And as we do Dantian breathing or abdominal breathing, let's also engage the hwadu, the question that is the focus of our meditation, imoko. What is this? What is this that directs my body? What is this that generates my thoughts? What is this that experiences my emotions and sensations? And as we enter into meditation, let's listen to the Dharma speech of Sun Master Songdam as he teaches us how to confront the darkest parts of ourselves.
선가 구감에도 출가해서 중이 되는 것이 어찌 조그마한 일일까 보냐. 아니란 것을 구하기 위해서도 아니고 배부리고 등 따신 것을 구해서도 아니고 명예나 이끝을 구하기 위해서도 아니다. 생사 문제를 해결하기 위해서요. 번뇌를 끊기 위해서요. 부처님의 해명을 잊기 위하며 삼계에 뛰어나서 일체 중생을 제도하기 위함이니라. 이렇게 말씀을 하셨습니다. 송광사 16국사 중에 한 분이신 진각국사의 좌우명을 오늘 말씀을 드리고자 합니다. 보살자 보살자여 보살이여 보살이여 발심을 해서 출가한 사람이면 의당히 대승법 보살이 되기를 서원을 한 부처님의 제자이기 때문에 여기서 보살자는 진각국사 자신이 자기에게 하신 말씀이라고 생각이 됩니다. 보살자여. 상자마두시묘에 항상 스스로 머리를 만져봐라. 깊이 그 까닭이 있을지니. 마두인득심사량이다. 머리를 만져보며 자기가 자기 머리를 이렇게 머리 빡빡 깎은 머리를 이렇게 만져보면 깊이 생각함을 얻을 것이다. 깊이 생각한 바가 있을 것이다. 출가본이 도하사오. 출가한 본 의도가 본심이 무엇을 도모하기 위해서였던가? 승기상모 속기심이면 겉으로는 중의 모양을 하고 있으면서 속으로 그 마음은 속심을 가지고 있다면 가불 참천 이괴지가 가히 하늘에도 부끄럽고 땅에도 부끄러운 일이 아니냐. 추행 광원 임여의로되 멋스러운 행동과 미친 말을 하는 것은 네가 하는 대로 맡겨두지만은 확탄, 노탄, 하회피르고 화탕지옥과 노탄지옥을 어떻게 피해갈 수가 있겠느냐. 진각국사는 이러한 좌우명을 항상 당신의 거처하는 방에 딱 붙여놓고 매일 이것을 읽어보시고 읊으셨으리라고 생각이 됩니다. 이러한 진각국사 좌우명이나 또는 부처님께서 지원정사에서 여러 젊은 제자들에게 하신 그 법문이나 선가구감에 있는 말씀이 오늘 이 말세를 당한 이때에 우리 불자들은 가슴 깊이 뜨겁게 마음에 새긴다면 어찌 말세라고 한탄할 것이 있겠습니까? 세상은 온통 정치나 경제나 교육이나 모든 것이 말세 형태를 나타내고 있습니다. 이럴 때에 우리 부처님의 정법이 아니고서는 이 세상을 소금이 되어주기가 어려우리라고 생각이 됩니다. 세상을 한탄할 것이 없습니다. 이런 세상에 있어서 부처님의 제자들은 출가한 스님네나 제가 하신 신남 신녀 여러분이나 불법을 믿고 정법을 믿고 의지하여서 자기를 깨닫는 공부를 해나간 데에는 차별이 있을 수가 없습니다. 불법은 일단 자기의 발밑을 먼저 살펴야 하고 자기를 돌아봐야 하는 것이라고 생각합니다. 스스로 자기 문제를 해결하는 데에 철저하지 아니하고서는 중생 제도니 사회 정화니 인류 평화 같은 것은 입에 낼 자격도 없다고 생각을 합니다.
In his Dharma speech, Sun Master Songdam makes reference to an admonition that Grand Master Jingak is said to have written for himself in calligraphy and kept on his own wall. Grand Master Jingak is one of the most venerated enlightened masters in Korean Buddhist history, and in his lifetime he held the position of national teacher, which means he was the counselor for the king on spiritual matters. And so Sun Master Songdam tells us that he wrote, this master wrote for himself, "You commit yourself to ugly behavior and crazy speech, but how will you avoid the boiling cauldrons of hell?" I think this is very, very interesting that an enlightened master would write something like that for himself. You wonder, well, why would does an enlightened master have the capacity to behave badly like that? Or maybe the gesture is really meant for us, that this master wrote that admonition for his followers and for later generations. One way or the other, in his Dharma speech, Sun Master Songdam tells us that if we have a problem within ourselves, if there's something within ourselves that's really, really bad, we need to turn around honestly, take a good look at it, and use the practice, use the teachings to do what we can to overcome this darkness or negativity that we find in ourselves. He tells us that if we don't do this, then all of our aspirations for enlightenment, for guiding other people to enlightenment, for social reform, for world peace, all of these things will be in vain. So this is a very, very strong statement that Sun Master Songdam is giving to us. And every religion in the world observes that there is something within us, within the human heart, within every human heart, that is very, very dark and destructive. There is something within us that is willing, always willing to hurt others to get what we want, to do things that we know will be destructive to ourselves. And the ancient religions all had a similar word for this tendency within ourselves. They called it a demon, a kind of evil spirit within us. And in these times, maybe we don't think that demons and evil spirits, literally exist. But I think, though, that it's still a useful metaphor, that there is something within us that we don't want to admit, that almost doesn't seem like us, but it just comes out at certain times, and then suddenly we are engaging in, as Grandmaster Jingak notes, ugly behavior and crazy speech. And the demon within each one of us, the demon in each of us is different. They want different things. They come out at different times. So there are some meditators and some people who are, normally quite all right. And they're very disciplined in their meditation, even admirably disciplined and diligent in their meditation. But there's just something about them that when they have the opportunity to get their hands on some money, it's like they turn into a different person. It's like the demon comes out and suddenly they're willing to do unethical things. They become conniving. They may even be willing to do things that are illegal. Some meditators and some people react that way to issues of fame and prestige. When they're on the stage, when they're getting attention, they want it all to themselves, and they bitterly resent and are jealous of those who they perceive to be competitors. They are very resentful of anyone who seems to be getting attention at their expense. Some meditators and some people react that way to power. Under normal circumstances, they're very well behaved, friendly, even warm. But when they just get a little bit of power, suddenly it's like they think that they're the emperor of Rome, and they're willing to use that power to hurt others, and they don't realize it, but they turn into kind of a bully. Some meditators and some people react that way to issues of love. In their desire for love and affection, they will again, as Grandmaster Jingak notes, commit themselves to ugly behavior and crazy speech. For some meditators and for some people, it's actual addictive behavior. They react that way to alcohol or gambling and things like that. For each of us, the demon is different, I think. But at the very heart of it, fundamentally, the demon is still the same for each of us. And in the Sun Buddhist tradition, there is a very philosophical interpretation or description of the nature of this demon. And they don't call it a demon. The ancient Sun Buddhist masters talked about the so-called 3 poisonous mindsets of excessive greed, rage and hatred, and finally foolishness, or in modern language, delusional behavior. So excessive greed, and we've spoken about these mindsets on this program before, so I'll just quickly describe them for those of you who are hearing about this for the first time. Excessive greed doesn't just mean that you want things, that you want to own things. It really means that you just want everything your way, right? And it's like you know, I want everyone to come to this party, but not her. She can't come. Or, you know, we're going to have this picnic tomorrow at the beach, so it better not rain. That's also a form of greed, according to Sun Buddhism. And with the second mindset of rage and hatred and resentment, this is the mindset that comes when we don't get what we want, when all of our wishes are not fulfilled. We react with this, you know, volatile personality, and you know, we can observe it in our day-to-day behavior. You know, just let her try something like that. You know, just wait and see. You know, and you know, that's just too bad. So it's like this justified, self-justified righteous anger. In our own eyes, it's righteous anger, but in the eyes of the Buddhist tradition, it is one face of the demon. And finally, the mind of delusion or foolishness. And this is a denial of reality. This is the feeling that you can do what you want on this issue, and there won't be any consequences, and you know, there will be no influence to others, and it's all okay. You know, and we see this attitude in ourselves all the time. If people don't understand me, you know, if they don't get what I'm trying to do, that's just too bad. That's their problem. You know, this is just the way it is, you know, and it's not the way it is, it's the way we want it to be. So the Sun Buddhist tradition talks about the three poisonous mindsets, but in reality, it's really just one mindset. It's three aspects of one major mindset. And in modern language, I would say that it's just selfishness. Self-absorbed, self-centered selfishness that just wants everything its way and will stop at nothing to get things to be their way or to get the things that they want. In the old language of Buddhism, this was called self-attachment. But I think in this day and age, if I say selfishness, it will make a lot of sense. Now, none of us, especially people who meditate, people who aspire to lofty spiritual goals like enlightenment, it's very hard for us to admit really how amazingly selfish we are, or how we can be. It's hard to admit that there is something within us that could be as ugly and destructive as a demon. But the years pass, we practice, and even though we practice, there are certain mistakes that we just keep making over and over. And this is one of the most astonishing things about living in a meditation community. Every meditator I've ever met, including myself, has a tendency to make the same mistake over and over at great expense to themselves and ending in great, you know, regret and shame and guilt and so forth. And if we're not careful over the years, we're going to start losing faith in ourselves. We may feel that there's something broken about us that we just can't fix. We may feel that we may never be able to become pure and innocent again. So today I'd like to share the story of a friend of mine who I think managed to fight back against his own inner demon. And I want to share this with you as an example of something that all of us can do, even when we feel like it's hopeless, that we just can't overcome the dark forces within us. Now, this friend of mine is a fellow Dharma brother, a fellow disciple of Sun Master Songdam, and we met when we were very young, when we were first starting out our lives as Buddhist monastics, and we had very, very different personalities, even though we got along very well. And he came from a military background. He had spent a lot of years in the Korean military service. But when you met him, that wasn't what you thought of him. That's not the first thing that you thought that he might have done before he became a monk. He loved Hollywood movies and music and art, and there was this very romantic side of him. And at the same time, however, as much as he longed for what he saw in these movies and shows and things like that, there was a part of him, I think, that really regretted some of the choices that he had made before he became a monk, that he really felt that if he had just not taken that path, that his life would have been better and he would have been able to do some of the things that he now only dreamed about. And I think that this was a great source of pain for him, that he couldn't turn the clock back, that he couldn't go back in time. And inside, I think he knew that he's very smart and he's strong, he has strong will and he's resourceful. And if he had made a different kind of decision, maybe he would have ended up in a different part of the world or a different, kind of life. So I think he was burdened by this inner, dissatisfaction. And in our own relationship, we did get along and there was great affection between us, but at the same time, and again, we were very young, but at the same time, I think that in many ways we could not understand each other. We didn't truly know how to accept each other or to extend to each other the deep understanding and compassion that probably both of us needed from one another. And so we often bickered, and there was trouble. It was a difficult relationship at times because we simply could not tune into each other's frequency. But when we were close, he would confide in me that he saw a darkness within himself. He deeply regretted some of the things he did and said, and he had a very strong personality, partly because of his background. And more than anything else, I think that in his past, before he became a monk, he had seen terrible things. He had seen violence. He had seen people die. He had seen great cruelty, systematic injustice, and he had had to live within that and be scarred by that. And so he carried this dark shadow within himself, I think, and never knew what to do about it. And in time, after years had passed, he told me that he wanted to live in seclusion now, that he wanted to, step out of our community, go somewhere quiet, and just practice on his own. And he said to me, he said, "I've never had a time in my life when there was peace. I have always been in conflicted, stressful situations, fighting with people and struggling, and I just want some peace for myself now." And so, I could really understand that. And at the same time, I did wish that he wouldn't go because he was a very capable leader, very, very capable administrator, and our community could really use his skills and his talent. But on a human level and as his friend, I really felt, he had said this to me and I couldn't say no. And so I did what I could to help him, make this change in his life. And the years passed and I began to meet him outside of the monastery, but we still had this gulf between us, this inability to understand one another. And eventually, we had a falling out, I'm sorry to say, and we stopped talking to each other and we went through a period of estrangement. And the years passed, both of us got older, my community got older, my teacher got older. And my teacher is now over 90 years old by Korean age. And he doesn't have the physical energy now to do everything and to make all of the decisions in running a very, very large and complicated organization. And so he called my friend back to take on a leadership role in our community. And so I had not talked with or met my friend in quite some time. And I heard he had returned, so I went to go see him. And I wondered, would we be able to connect this time? And then when I saw him, I knew immediately that he had changed. Somehow he had become a different kind of person. He was the same guy that I remember, but he was different. There was a different kind of energy about him. There was an energy of hope and confidence and generosity. And I could see that if there had been something broken in him, he had fixed it. He had somehow healed his own scars. And it was very, very palpable, this positive aura of energy around him. And the entire community reacted to him. And in a matter of days, there are all these things that we have to make decisions about now in our community. Should we go do things according to tradition, or should we adapt to the times? And what are we to do about the waning interest in Buddhism, that people are just not interested in Buddhism that much anymore in Korean society? What are we to do about that? And how are we to comport ourselves as modern-day Buddhist monastics? There are all these questions, and following upon these questions are all these logistical issues that have to be dealt with that my teacher can no longer handle one by one, and he shouldn't have to. He has paid his dues. He has done what he can for the world. It was really our time to do these things. So we find ourselves in this turning point, and it's, and my friend comes in with this wave of inspirational energy, and the community gathers around him. In a very short time, he has managed to fix and change, of course, with the help of the community. But together, people have fixed and changed all of these things that needed to be addressed. And it's really just been one of the most inspiring things. And I could see, we saw immediately that there was no problem between us. So I went up to him privately because I knew the kind of shadows he had carried in his heart. So I went up to him and I said, how'd you do it? And he was like, do what? He said, how'd you beat the demon? And this is something that we used to talk about. We actually used to use that phrase, that there's a demon within us that we're struggling with. So I said, how'd you beat the demon? And he said, look, I haven't beaten the demon. Probably we can't beat the demon until enlightenment. And so he was being humble, which, by the way, he wasn't always humble in the past. But I said to him, all right, maybe you didn't beat the demon, but you've got it by the throat. You've got control of it. You have to admit to that. And he said, yeah, I've taken control. And I said, well, how'd you do that? And he said, I came to a time when I lost all hope. He told me there were nights. In the middle of the night, he would go out to the Han River in Seoul and just look out over that river, and he just didn't want to live anymore. He didn't want to live with the darkness that he saw in his own heart. And he had come close to the point of despair. And then he said he knew he had to change his life. He just couldn't go on living like this anymore. He knew he had to change his life. He wanted to do something good for my teacher, something good for our shared home community, and he wanted to do it without any ulterior motives, without trying to gain anything for himself. Now, the thing about my friend is that, as I said, he has received specialized military training, and the kind of personality that he has is if you push him into a corner, he will come out fighting. And that's what I saw in him. He had gone to the brink of hopelessness and despair, and he turned around, came out fighting with all of his strength, like the soldier that he had once been trained to be. And he said to me, I'm not afraid of anything anymore. And I said, well, we all know you're tough. You've had specialized training. We know that. And he said, no, it's not that. It's not. I'm not afraid of anything anymore because there is nothing I want for myself. Think about how inspiring that is. Most people, or many people, spend a lot of time complaining about everything that didn't go right in their life, about all the things that they couldn't get, that they couldn't enjoy, that other people have. And many of us, including myself, we can spend a lot of time doing that. And here was this guy, my friend, who had learned how not to do that, and instead of focusing on what he didn't get, pining for all the things that he never got to enjoy, instead of doing that kind of stuff, he decided, I'm going to focus on what I can contribute. And, the timing couldn't have been better. At a time when we really needed a leader, he came back like, the homecoming hero. And it has been really just the most inspiring thing to see a leader like that, who fears nothing because they are not doing it for themselves. And I have to tell you, there is nothing more inspiring than to have a friend like that. And having seen him take on his own private demon, that had caused him so much suffering and had bullied him around for so long really, really made me reflect on my own private demons. And I looked at him and this, this great generosity in his eyes and the kindness and warmth with which he treats our younger Dharma brothers and the people around him. So this is what happens when we struggle with our own demons. It's not just our own victory. That energy goes out into the world. The world shares in our victories when we choose, when we have the courage to fight our own private demons. So once again, let's assume meditation posture, enter into meditation again, and now let's listen to Sun Master Songdam's Dharma speech as he teaches us how to find hope at a time when things seem hopeless.
자기에게 있는 것을 자기가 찾는 것이기 때문에 올바른 방법으로 열심히만 한다면 반드시 자성을 깨달을 수 있다고 역대 조사는 한결같이 보증을 하셨습니다. 말세에 참선해가지고 될까? 내가 근기가 약한 사람으로서 염불이나 하지 경이나 읽지 감히 최상승법을 한다고 한 것이 과연 목적 달성이 될 것인가? 이런 의심은 할 것이 없습니다. 백만겁이 지나고 무량겁이 지내서 아무리 말세가 된다 하더라도 우리의 자성에는 변함이 없는 것입니다. 이 방법을 인연이 없어서 모른다면 얻을 수가 없는 것이지만 올바른 방법만을 알 수가 있다면 그리고 같이 공부하는 도반이 있는 한에는 우리는 외롭지 않는 것입니다. 열심히 해서 반드시 금생에 이 몸으로 자성을 깨닫기를 다 같이 다짐하면서 오늘의 결제 말씀을 맺고자 합니다. 진로 형탈사비상이라 긴파승두 주일장인이라 일본 한철골인된 쟁득매화 박비향이리오나
In his Dharma speech today, Sun Master Songdam makes reference to the so-called final age of the Dharma. And in Buddhist tradition, this refers to basically the end of the universe, the time at the end of the world where everything through corruption and decay will come to an apocalyptic end. And in this so-called final age, it's taught that there will be no more enlightened masters. And even if you try to become enlightened, the people of this age are so corrupt and so fallen that they will never be able to become enlightened. So Sun Master Songdam makes reference to this age, but he also tells us that that thing within us, the so-called Buddha nature, our self nature, can never be harmed, can never decay, can never be tainted, can never become corrupt, even in the final age of the Dharma. So he encourages us to think of the final age of the Dharma as not as a literal time in the history of the universe, but instead as a state of mind. So what is the state of mind of the final age of the Dharma? It's the state of hopelessness, the state of feeling like I can't fix myself, I can't save myself. And what we need to understand, both in the teachings of Sun Master Songdam and in the example of my friend that I've shared with you today, is that things are never hopeless. There are things that people do that truly are horrific, tragically so. But there is nothing that we've done that is so cruel or corrupt or depraved that all hope is gone. There is something within us that perseveres in spite of that. Literally, according to the Buddhist tradition, there is something within us that never dies, that is always bright and radiant. So, in coming to the end of today's episode, I very much want to encourage all of our viewers, especially those of you who may be going through a very dark time, who may be feeling hopeless, do not give up hope. There is something within us that shines, and all we need to do is turn our eyes inward, and we can discover it for ourselves. Thank you. So once again, I will conclude today's episode with the traditional Buddhist greeting. May we all attain enlightenment. Please resume your meditation posture, and we will enter into our closing meditation.
파사 노년의 친서간 두상 광음 전두비로구나 나 모아이미 답을 제득 무용체라 불여함구 과잔춘이로다 나